32% of all dental practices in the US are having problems filling vacancies for their office managers, and that manager turnover rate is also at a staggering 23%. Hey, J.W. Oliver here. Really excited to bring you a series of webinars that will really help to maximize your bottom line. First of all, I got to say Pura Vida, because I love saying Pura Vida. Pure Life just gets you in the relaxing point where you can really get your head around thinking about that. And I'm actually in Costa Rica, so I'm going to get a little Pura Vida, Pure Life myself. What I really want you to think about are ways in which you can maximize the bottom line. There's a time where it was about expansion, about adding more real estate, adding more locations. But now there's a focus on maximizing your bottom line, which can mean inclusive of how do you get that same store growth, as we like to call it. So today we're going to be talking about navigating the staffing, as we like to say, team member retention challenges that exist in the workspace. So labor's tough. It's been tough for a number of years. Post-COVID really brought in a lot of challenges to the industry. And as you think about it, well, first of all, some stats, and I think it's important to think about that. 32% of all dental practices in the US are having problems filling vacancies for their office managers, and that manager turnover rate is also at a staggering 23%. So not just your front desk, but actually your dental office management can see some high levels of turnovers. The actual office team members is higher than that. It's not a cheap process either. When you look at hiring or replacing or changing out, it can range anywhere between $3,000 and $10,000. I think $3,000 is extremely low. I think you're going to see that in the $5,000 to $7,000 range. So replacing team members is expensive. Understanding that cost can help you think about, how can I create that culture? How can I create that longevity? How can I create that environment where not only do team members want to thrive, but where they want to stay, right? And there's a lot of reasons for turnover in the office. So number one that comes up, it's kind of neck and neck with the second one, but low compensation. Maybe they're just looking how they can make more money. Number two is career advancement. What are the career opportunities? And then there is a level of dissatisfaction that's streaming at number three. Now, one thing that encompassing it all, and you'll see this in national surveys around all job types, is they want to be appreciated. And when you think about it, it sounds so simple, right? Well, oh yeah, they feel appreciated. Oh, I gave them bonuses, or oh, I told them great job, or I patted them on the back, or maybe you don't do any of those little things. And truly, it's the little things that make the biggest difference, right? And a lot of that is just being able to say, you're doing a good job. We appreciate you. I want to set some goals. I want to review what you've done. I want to review how you can be a better team member. So as we think about the cost of turnover, and as we navigate these team member staffing retention challenges, number one is understand what the reasoning is. So let's make them feel appreciated. Let's be fair with the compensation, and let's also give them a path to success or a path to moving up in the well. It could be a different role. It could be just a different title with more capabilities or more items in their toolbox and their job descriptions on how they may be able to do that better. So the demand for dental services is growing. And also what is happening is the labor pool, or the qualified labor pool, is continuing to shrink or continuing to diminish. You know, it's estimated that dentists specifically spend an average of 20% of their time on administrative tasks. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to put the numbers together. Whether you're in that average of, there's all kinds of averages of $400 to $700 of production time is what you can do per hour as a dentist. And if you take, I'll use 40, it could be a little less on your work hours, but let's say if you're spending 10 hours a week on administrative tasks, You take that by the week, just use 500, that's 5,000. By the month, there's $20,000 in revenue that has been diminished, and it's probably higher than that. So spending time on these administrative issues when there are some ways in which you can supplement or augment those. And there's a lot of things that contribute to that. It can be just the burnout. It can be, again, they feel like they've reached the top and there's no room for advancement. So giving them a career path is super, super important. And you're also going to find that the most profitable, the most successful businesses and practices are ones who have learned to navigate those high turnover rates. So another way you can look at this is how can you supplement your current team member roles? And when you look at this, the difficulty in staffing, the difficulty in retention, one thing to look at is the various ways for outsourcing. We hate that word. We really like to stay with the word insourcing, because insource means they are becoming part of your culture. So when we think in depth about that, there's really three areas in which you could look to supplement your existing team. Now, we're many times not saying to eliminate any of your existing teams. We're saying to supplement them. It could be as you grow and get busier that you need to give them some help. But maybe more importantly, it could be as you have this turnover, as you have this natural attrition, maybe somebody moves or maybe somebody takes another job, or they retire. There's all kinds of reasons. Maybe you can look at a way to which you can reduce that overhead. You know, the average overhead is over 30%. You get into some dental service organizations, it can be lower. But when that average is over that 30%, that's your biggest single factor. So as you look at navigating the staffing and retentions, what are some ways in which you could supplement that? We know that leveraging remote virtual teams can be a successful path and a successful way in which you can reduce that frustration, reduce that 20% of your time which you've spent handling administrative tasks or duties. Even if it's not the doctor doing those 20% of administrative staff, it could be the office manager. How can you keep them on focusing on those high ROI, those things that really move your practice forward? And that would be by eliminating the headache. Now, it doesn't go away. It's about reducing it. It's about mitigating it. So instead of having, these super high numbers of 32%, or I've even recently heard that over 50% of people in the dental office were looking for new opportunities. So how do you reduce that? Well, supplement it, give them those career paths, make them feel appreciated. And how could you use a hybrid approach where you're using remote virtual teams? Now, there are three different types of remote virtual teams when you look at it, helping to reduce these challenges. You got what we call onshore, nearshore, offshore. For instance, if you're in the United States, if you're in Kansas City, Kansas, I don't know why I showed Kansas City. It's in the middle of the country and it'd be easy to demonstrate. Or Dallas. You're in Kansas City or Dallas, and you are looking to add a team member. One of the ways to do that would be onshoring. And that could be somebody in the same proximity, in the same town. It could be somebody remotely that's in the next state, or it could be somebody across the country. So onshoring is leveraging those virtual remote teams that are probably not coming into your practice either, unless they were located in the town. But it's those that are coming from other locations to work for you remotely. That's the onshoring. Now, typically that has a higher cost rate because you are paying competitive wages in those similar landscapes in the U.S., which are going to be higher than when you look at the other options. The second option would be, how could you leverage that with nearshore? Now, nearshore simply means they're probably in the same time zone. So I'll just use a new state. Let's go with Albuquerque, New Mexico. If you're in Albuquerque and you hire someone in Toronto, Canada, that would be nearshoring. You could call that onshore, but probably nearshore. Mexico, Central America. We've got an office in Costa Rica, considered nearshore. literally all the way down into to South America because you are in that same time zone. So you've got, again, onshore, which is in same country, same time zone. The onshore, the near shore is going to be in the same time zone, but could be quite distance away. Or then you're looking at true offshoring. Offshore is going to be in a different time zone, typically at a different location. For instance, it could be in Africa, it could be in the Philippines, could be in India, any of the traditional type of BPOs, business process organizations, or any type of the outsourcing locations. And so one of the reasons why this is important when you're looking at navigating the staffing and retentions, you've simply just broadened your horizon, right? Instead of having a pool of, everybody knows this too, right? I hear this story so many times. I don't want to say put an ad in the paper, a little bit old school, but you put an ad out there, you put an offering out there, you get 10 people who answer it. I've literally heard that they'll have one or two actually show up for the interview. So the follow through is more difficult. So all you're doing is expanding your scope. You're making it more of a global offering. So now you have reached out to other areas. It could be onshore, nearshore, or offshore. So you have a larger pool of team members. Now, I will give you a couple of things to think about as you look at navigating these challenges, as you look at how are you going to implement the onshore, nearshore, offshore. And I'll give you some real basic points. Number one, look at experience and reputation. Are you working with a company that's done this before? And there is hundreds of them out there. Do a little background check and make sure they fit that box. What services do they offer? For instance, we're a little unique in the dental businesses that we have trained, or we call them certified dental coordinators. Men, they've been through our course, they have a really good background, and now we've got team members with 1, 2, 3, 4, even 5, 6 years of experience that we're able to help practices leverage those teams. So understand the services they offer. Do they have any training? Do they have any background? What's their experience? Q&A, what kind of quality assurance? HIPAA compliant, maybe the biggest. Man, if you don't know how big of a deal that is, get a hold of Gary and his team at Black Talent Security. We leverage them on all of our team members, and it is a nightmare out there if you are going to be caught in some ransomware. So look at the HIPAA compliancy. Look at the technology and infrastructure. How good is their infrastructure? How reliable is their internet? How reliable is their power? Things. These are really good questions to ask. People will tell you, especially if they're working from home. Like for us, we have no work from home because we wanted to control the power. We wanted to control the internet. We wanted to control all those variables which could cause problems. Look at scalability and flexibility. What about the hours? Can they work the same hours as you? Big thing. We do that. It's a huge, if you're in, let's pick a new one. If you're in Sacramento, California, you probably want them working on Pacific Coast time, right? Pacific Standard Time, which means can your team members in Africa, Costa Rica, Philippines, wherever it is, can they work on those time zones? Fixed cost versus production. A lot of times it's based on what they do versus a fixed rate. We like to use the fixed rate. You know that you're going to pay a flat rate every month, and so that's not going to vary. Communication support. Can you speak to your team member direct? I was just recently on a phone call when somebody was looking at leveraging these remote teams, and they said, am I able to speak to my team member? We said, well, goodness, we hope so, because if not, they're not going to know what to do, because we want our team members, or your team members, as we say, getting direction, getting reinforcement, getting all of the things they need to be successful, setting those KPIs, having those regular meetings, building that confidence and trust so that you can have a successful team member as well. Contract, no contract, look for the things that aren't long-term. And again, cybersecurity. So HIPAA compliant, one thing, cybersecurity is another. Or do they understand what HIPAA, what PHI is, and what steps or precautions have they put in place to make sure that they can do this? Again, it's a decision that you need to make on whether you want to just replace that position locally, whether or not you're seeing that there's a massive amount of turnover, and also what you can afford to budget. And I think that helps you decide. Do I want to hire that internal to my office, or do I want to hire that external? It alleviates a lot of pain. We know that you can take a salary and you can add 35% to that to cover for all the benefits, the office space, all of the intangibles that you're going to spend when you hire somebody. So when you think of it like this, if you're looking at, let's say you have somebody who wants $40,000 a year, you need to add 35% to that cost. So say another $15,000 to $20,000. So somewhere between $55,000 and $60,000 is what that's going to cost you in real dollars versus when you leverage remote virtual teams, you're usually typically going to get a fixed rate for that role. And there's so many roles that you can outsource. Again, when you look at the front office, don't just be focused in on maybe an office manager or maybe what we call director of first impressions, somebody who's answering the phone as they bring people in. Really look at what roles could be delegated today. I've got a little acronym. I stole some of it. Some of it's my own. But I think the first thing is to evaluate. Really evaluate your team, evaluate what they do, and evaluate what they probably should be doing or what should be in their job description. So evaluate, then eliminate. Not eliminate people, not advocating eliminate people, but eliminate the things that maybe they shouldn't be doing at all. What could I move out of their realm that they're not doing? And then what could they delegate? And that's where we come in. We know we have a great solution that ties back into these retentions and navigating this difficult area where we can say, yes, we've got an answer for you to navigate and retain your team members by delegating. So as we evaluate, as we eliminate, and as we delegate, now our teams can focus. Doesn't that make sense? Evaluate this is our personal life too, right? I think we can in the morning wake up and really look at our day and say, I need to evaluate what I'm doing. I need to eliminate some things I shouldn't do. I need to delegate some things that somebody else could do probably better than me. That's the truth. And then I can focus on those things that are going to bring me the most value. But those roles that you can delegate today, director of first impressions is a good one. Follow up to unscheduled treatment, reactivations of patients, your hygiene recare. We've got a client who increased their hygiene recare 30% month over month just because they had it dedicated. Obviously, everything from the mundane insurance verification, get that out of your office. Let somebody do it. You want to increase your retention rate, get these mundane tasks, these repetitive tasks out of the office. And the insurance verification could be one of those. Revenue cycle management. We've got teams that can help single practices or large groups that can help with their revenue cycle management program, appointment confirmations, executive personal assistants, bookkeeping, everything from a controller, literally a controller level, all the way down to AP payroll, bookkeeping. All of that can be done remotely. So these are just examples of things of how you can take this whole process of maximizing your bottom line as you look at the navigating and the retention of this complex world to replace and to hire. So again, as you look at these areas, as you think about the cost savings, you're going to find traditionally most of it, not traditionally, you're going to find that we can save you about 50 to 60%, depending on the role, overall bottom line, which can be a big number. When you look at, again, that 30% total that you're spending on your office labor, reducing that everywhere you can increase and really put that number onto your bottom line. Also, one thing I thought about when you're speaking to companies, ask them about their attrition rate. I mean, we have a very low voluntary attrition. Some outsourcing companies can run as high as 8 to 10% per month. Ours is 0.52 or 0.5%, so 6% a year, lower than most dental practices. So really make sure that you're looking into many of those key elements as you're looking, whether you're going to onshore, nearshore, offshore, or even bringing them into your practice. Man, one of the things we forget to ask is how many jobs have they been in the last few years? Understand that. And I like to end with what makes us unique. We don't have any long-term contracts. When you hire somebody, when you hire Susie works for you only. University education, they have a beautiful speaking the Queen's English, as we like to say. And I mentioned it earlier, but no work from home. So whatever position or whatever predicament you find yourselves in today, really think about, how can I maximize my time? How can I maximize my efficiency? Going back to what I mentioned at the very beginning, make your team members feel valued and appreciated. Make sure you're giving them a fair compensation, and also make sure they have a career path or a way forward. And then it opens up the door to alternatives in which you can retain and navigate the difficulty in establishing your business. And it's important as you go forward. It's a difficult environment. It's going to continue to be tough as the wages will continue to rise. Hey, we appreciate you joining us today. We hope this episode can help you to maximize that bottom line. I also have to tell you, we have a special. What's our special? We're going to give you $500 off if you will click on the link below. We're going to give you that right off the top, your first month. Good savings to let us show you what else we can offer at Support DDS to help you maximize and really to navigate those. Have an amazing day.